Authorities say traffic volumes have started increasing on most major routes, including the N4, as many residents return to the province from their holiday destinations, the province of Gauteng, presumably. Let's get you a better sense of perhaps what we're able to see at this early start of the weekend. Bring in the Road Traffic Management Corporation CEO, Advocate Makhosini Msibi, who's with us via our video link. And Advocate, great to see you. Thanks very much indeed, as always, for making time to speak to us. So we had always anticipated that the traffic will start picking up perhaps from today well into Monday in some instances. What are we able to see insofar as some of those trends are concerned?
Well, good morning and thank you to the viewers in having us, Ayanda. It is quite true that since yesterday we have been seeing an unprecedented growth of the traffic volumes, in particular your N1, your N4, your N2, R61, as well as the N12. It is of course of common cause that these are the gateways to the neighboring states, but at the very same time, these are the gateways to the coastal areas. And we now know that everybody, having enjoyed their holidays, they're going back to their own destination. And to that extent, we have seen the swelling of our roads beginning early hours of the morning until very late in the evening. And today, we have just seen the volumes having peaked as early as 10 o'clock in the morning. So we are in for a high jump this afternoon, tomorrow, Monday. Obviously, you know that the industries are opening on Monday, and there's going to be a much more swelling tomorrow as well as early hours of Monday morning.
Absolutely. You use the word unprecedented, and I suppose that's an opportunity for us to speak to some of those numbers. Our ballpark is typically pre-COVID-19. Are we back to that level?
Surprisingly, we have gone beyond what we anticipated, because you know that we thought that there was going to be a gradient or the gradual growth. That's why I'm using the word unprecedented, because it has gone beyond what was then expected. Obviously, there are a number of factors that have been at play over and above the festive season. We do believe that there was a lot of disposable income that has made everybody to be in the better position to go to whatever destination. And obviously, post the COVID situation, we do believe that people have made a number of plans to go on holidays. But also, you will then know that also the borders have also been porous in terms of the numbers of people that were going in and out, as well as the heavy vehicles that were there. You'll know that the situation that we're faced with in Mpumalanga, as well as the N2 to Richards Bay, it has now become phenomenon, as well as to Botswana, that trade has also picked up to that extent. You also have the freight in playing a role in terms of the picking of our roads. So you have both combination of the normal vehicles as well as the freight vehicles. So to that extent, we're competing for space. That's why we're having these high numbers during this time.
Absolutely. And we'll speak about any kind of infrastructure development to accommodate that space in just a moment. But let me just gauge just how happy you are with the level of compliance we've seen over the past couple of weeks.
Well, it's quite disturbing that as South Africans, in terms of the road safety conduct, we fall very short. And it's very disturbing that the conduct of our road users leaves much to be desired. It is unacceptable that at this stage, we're sitting plus minus 1,200 of the people that have perished in our roads, with the Eastern Cape leading the number, sitting with about 200 people that have perished. But what is also very critical to understand is that in terms of the numbers that we're talking about, 43% there too accounts to pedestrians. And that is one of the issues that is more concerning. If you have almost 50% of those that have perished on our roads being pedestrians, and that on its own, it's telling. And if you look in terms of where all these have occurred, they've occurred within the build-up areas precisely and predominantly within the informal, around the informal settlements and the build-up areas along the major roads. That has also then been concerning. But also, the issue of the public transport in this past festive season has also been concerning. But what does it tell us? What is the story that we are now beginning to pick up? It then tells us about the quality of our drivers. So it then warrants us to go back and look into the modalities and the ways in which our people are getting the driver's licenses. But you will not underscore the process of fraud and corruption of those that are on the roads that are not supposed to be on the roads, be it drivers, be it vehicles. So this on its own, it's not playing itself out.
Sure. It's interesting you say that. I mean, you know, there have been calls, for example, in the past for the country to really re-look at legislation when it comes to handing out things like the driver's licenses you mentioned. Does the RTMC reckon that is where the solution lies?
Well, it's one of the solutions. There are a number of variables that we need to come with. It is, of course, pleasing that just towards the end of the year, the minister has publicized the new regulations that we are beginning to look for public comment in terms of the K52 that needs to be reviewed in its own total, the issue of the driving schools, in particular, the instructors, so that you then begin to make it compulsory that there needs to be certain standards that they need to have. But having done that, there is a need that we then look into the law enforcement and particularly the justice system. One of the deterrents over and above what we have put in place over an ARTO, but there needs to be an issue that our law should then have teeth. And the only teeth that you can then have, it's when you punish the offenders seriously and very severely. If you look in terms of the speeding, which is one of the issues that is more high on our roads, you look at drunken driving, we have seen a highest number of drivers that have been arrested for drunken driving. That on its own also warrants that there needs to be a review of the sentencing and the punishment along those lines. The reckless and negligent driving, it is common cause that as drivers, we have a responsibility once we are behind the steering wheel to behave in a particular way, which we are not finding in South Africa. So in South Africa, what the South African road users and the drivers are doing, they are doing as they please, simply because people know that I will get a Section 56 notice and I will not pay it. And that's one of the issues that we have seen. If you look in terms of the outstanding number of warrant of arrest arising from the road traffic offenses, we're talking millions of those numbers. So it also calls upon us that post this festive season, as the traffic law enforcement, we need to ensure that we cause so much inconvenience for South Africans in pursuit of the warrant of arrest and those that have road traffic infringement fines. We need to deal with it very harshly and follow it, because what people believe in South Africa is that if I have a Section 56 notice or a road traffic infringement notice, the matter is going to be withdrawn by the courts. That has been a matter that has been common within the public discourse, and we need to deal with this. And to that extent, that's what we're going to be doing post this process. We're going to be approaching the Department of Justice as well as the NPA, and we need to have a review of how we deal with these issues, because the traffic law infringements in their own nature, it's a criminal activity. It does not warrant to be treated as a light offense. It is an offense that warrants attention, that warrants to be dealt with harshly, so as to ensure that we improve the conduct and the behavior of our road users.
Sure, sobering indeed. You mentioned that there's been a staggering number of people who've died on the road so far, just about 1,200, really eye-watering, 43% of those pedestrians. How do these numbers, Advocate Msibi, compare to what we've seen in the past?
Well, it is an increase. In the past, we have not been done so poorly. We worked extremely well, but there have been a number of factors. But it shouldn't be dependent on the factors. It should be dependent on the conduct. It should be a standard practice that all road users and all South Africans takes responsibility. Road safety is the responsibility of each and every individual. It just cannot be acceptable. If you compare ourselves with countries like Sweden and Australia, per annum, when they say they have a devastating year, it's when you have about 300 people that have perished on their roads. Their population, it's higher than us, but their behavior, it's much more better. You also take some other countries, Ethiopia and the rest that we have in South Africa. Comparatively speaking, we're doing exceptionally worse as South Africans.
I wonder to what extent you reckon infrastructure may have or it may be considered yet another factor. You know, I've certainly heard a lot of people who say South Africa's freeways are among, at least they're compared to the best in the world. But we know that in many instances, broadening the roads, creating more lanes might alleviate the pressure at the very least and hopefully lead to a reduction in these kind of numbers. Is that something you reckon could also assist? I mean, how much attention, for example, is the RTMC giving to something like that?
Well, we do analysis in terms of our road infrastructure. We can assure you that South African road infrastructure is the best, and it's amongst the best in South Africa. And in fact, if you look in terms of the causes of the fatalities and the crashes, our road infrastructure, it's not found wanting in that scenario. It's only the human behavior that plays itself. But let's put into this issue, because it's a matter that some of the people have raised in terms of the infrastructure within the build-up areas as relevant to the potholes. Let's then, if you factor that issue into the equation, in fact, the numbers should have gone down drastically, because it becomes reckless and intolerable for a person to drive within the infrastructure that is not compatible and drive at a high speed. So on its own, the potholes, as some of the people have been making a case, becomes a deterrent in terms of the issues that we find ourselves. But in the overall, and as a fact, South African road infrastructure, in particularly our freeways, in particularly our artery roads, we have the best in the country.
All right. Advocate Msibi, you've given us a lot to think about, and I shudder at the thought of what's likely to happen in the coming days when the numbers are so high. Hopefully, at the very least, we'll be able to cap what seems to be an unprecedented number of fatalities so far. Advocate Makhosini Msibi is the CEO of the Road Traffic Management Corporation.